Good evening, everybody. Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 325, and tonight we have Professor Alan Chambers on. And those you know him probably know him from he's a BJJ black belt, which is no joke. I mean, anybody who does that goes that far to me has my 100% complete respect. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's minimum 10 years or something. Um, so in that, and then Krav Maga, and obviously he is dabbling in FMA and Kung Tao. So we're going to cover all that. And the latest, he kind of went to Piper, Dark Side. No, just kidding. But and we'll review that and basically some of the stuff that came out in the prep talk test run on his tense versus intensity, minority versus majority. Some really good things I thought he brought up that are definitely worth discussing. So we're going to cover all that. So without further ado, here he is. And if you're watching, please tell us where you're watching from and smash that like button. Hey there.
Hey Guru, how are you?
Oh my God, just Dean. How you been?
I've been doing well. It's been a hectic few weeks, but I'm very honored to be on the show and participate in the things I have the past few weeks. So very excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, well, we're excited to have you. So makes
Thank you.
two of us. So yeah, we got some folks watching already, and yeah, folks, if you're watching, tell us where you're watching from. If you have questions, by all means, please put them in the comment section. I will see them and get to them. So before we go into FMA and your system there and your ideology and as far as some of the stuff that we discussed in the test run, like I guess what was your initial martial arts background? Were you like most of us, kind of traditional in that?
Yeah, really traditional. I started off in like a karate base. It was a mix of kind of Kyokushin and Shotokan and some other things. I did that probably from 10 all the way through high school. So I spent quite a few years doing that. And then as my sports progressed, I did tons of soccer and basketball. The martial arts started to wane a little bit. And then, I wasn't talented enough to, I was at essentially a Division I school. So I couldn't participate in. I wasn't good enough to participate in those, but I started obsessing ever since then. When I was in college, with books and DVDs. At the time, it was VHS tapes. So DVDs were starting to come about. They're more accessible. YouTube, toward the end of my college years, YouTube started popping up. So it was really interesting to start to see some of those become available. But I started collecting books like crazy. So turn of the century from 18 to 1900s, and every book I could get. So I studied just obsessively. And then as soon as I got a job right at a school, I started training again. So that started with, actually, it started with pankration. I didn't realize that till a couple of years after I started training.
Wow.
Jeet Kune Do right after, submission wrestling, and then eventually I made my way to Thai boxing, BJJ, Kali, and made my way through a ton of different arts through the years. But I'd say there's probably a core 5 that I've done steadily since, and that's catch wrestling, BJJ, Kung Tao, all different styles of FMA, and JKD. That's probably, if I didn't already say that. Yeah.
Wow, it's so that's funny because I don't think in any particular order, but I've definitely done like my first FMA experience was actually I don't know depending on where you're coming from, I don't know if you can call it FMA because then the morals don't like that, but was definitely Mindanao flavor, from Ron Kozakowski. But that I did that actually before like FMA.
Cool.
And then Ron also had the catch from Larry Hartzell.
Yes. Ron's a bad dude. So
Yeah.
shout out to Ron. He's up there in Connecticut. I know.
Yeah, right. I mean,
think Seafood Rich is on too.
Yeah, there's a funny guy, Rich Mager. So yes, and he's so there was him, and then then I kind of just swung over to FMA permanently. But so that's interesting. Yeah, we got folks over. We got Felix from Texas, Rich,
Yes.
who's already been, Jerry Smith, and
Felix from FCS Texas, Jerry Smith from Philly, Danny from Louisiana.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
All right, folks. Yes, if you're watching, tell us who you're watching from. So from there, then I guess what led you to actually, I guess, stay with FMA and start to get rank? And I guess what was the teacher, your first teacher, where you kind of you found a home, so to speak, and you wanted to go further, instead bouncing around and pursue it? What style was that?
So what I started to notice after doing some boxing and then the pancration and submission wrestling I was doing, I had moved into Philadelphia proper, and I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Thai boxing.
Mm.
And I noticed, hey, the stuff I'm doing isn't necessarily focused on self-defense. And as a kid, I was bullied, and it was always been like a soft spot for myself. So I always wanted to focus, hey, not only for kids but for adults too. There's a lot of adults of all ages that could use martial arts for many things, not only self-defense but attribute development, understanding themselves, how to use it in day-to-day life. There's tons of things that you could absolutely do on a day-to-day basis, and focus in on those things that martial arts provide. So uh, long story short, I started realizing that there wasn't a whole lot of weapon stuff in the stuff I was doing. So, and most of the stuff I started looking at, and from my previous experience, was Japanese in nature. That was
Mm.
the majority of what I had done previously. And I started doing private lessons. At that point, I was, making some money on my own. I had the ability to start doing private lessons with anyone I could. I'd call random places up. Hey, would you mind doing a private lesson? How much? When are you available? And doing it. So I kind of went through as many people as I could in the Philadelphia area to try and learn as much as I could. And it wasn't until I found a really good friend of mine, still friends. I had a gym with him for almost 10 years. Sifu Joe Noffet introduced me to his style of Kali, which was really, really, really raw, JKD and Kali, to be honest with you. And I loved it. And it was super practical, nothing fancy, to the point, survival. So that's when the light switch, it was everything that I was looking for. And
Mm.
then I started mixing it with that what I had already done. And a great way of saying it is I JKD'd it, right? So I JKD'd that, and fit it with what I felt was best for myself, as well as my teaching methods.
So when you say, generally speaking, and generally, anytime you're mixing FMA with JKD, you automatically think ensemble blend, because when you go through ensemble blend, you get both. Like when I went through the ranks, not only did I get my JKD certification, but you also get the Kali on the side. It's like, and all that. Is that was the system that you were doing? Was it that ensemble blend?
Yeah. It definitely derived from Inasano blend. So it's a really, really long story, but my Sifu, and again, he's a great training partner. I always consider him my Sifu, but we've been training partners and
Mm.
best friends for almost 2 decades now. Um, his system originally, he didn't have an origin of it, so he never got a certificate after training for 20 years. He's older than me, and when he lost connection with his Sifu, started pursuing another JKD style that fit his style. And that, at the time, that was under the Vunak lineage. And we're
That's
going
my
back,
lineage. Yeah.
yes, going back, 15 plus years.
Yeah.
Um, that was his core stuff in the
Okay.
Philadelphia area. It was one of the few in the Philadelphia area, and that's where I learned it from. So it goes, obviously, for those of you who know, from JKD and Kali, Paul Vunak at one point was probably, and again, I don't want to step on any toes, but probably the protege to Guru Dan at one point.
90s was the
Yes,
protege to
yes,
Guru Dan.
yeah. You said it, not me. So
Yeah.
don't send me the hate mail.
I mean, Black Panther.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
the Straight Blast name
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
from
The motorcycle helmets.
him. I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah.
Yep.
I mean, up until early 2000s, and then things went south. That's all I'm gonna
Yeah.
say.
We'll leave that there. Yeah. So that was my lineage, and still is, and I'm proud of it. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
to this day, it's still some of the best stuff. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he used the weapon training to enhance the empty hands,
Yep.
and I mean, he was a trendsetter in so many ways. I'm glad I hear he's kind of made a comeback, and I wish him the best, and I hope it continues. And yeah, that's all.
Yes.
So so when you're going deeper into this, what were your initial, like, what resonated with you that you wanted to do more of this coming from your other background and now you're going deeper into, weapons and all that? Like, what was resonating with you?
For me, I it was hard for me to find a weapons art when I was looking for it, and honestly, even to this day, that and again, I'm pretty blunt with stuff, so it was hard for me to find a weapons art that wasn't fanciful. Let's say that,
Mm,
right? And I always wanted, my core was always like, well, how does this help a 15-year-old kid? How does this
yeah.
help a 120-pound female? How does this help whoever, right? An elderly male or female? And I just couldn't find it. It was like the stuff I was finding, especially at that time, was so obscure and so ridiculous that I had a hard time with it. Not that I didn't want to learn it, but
Mm,
I would learn it and it was like, well, how does it? I would learn it and then say, well, how does this help me or anyone else? Right? I look at it that way, and then I'd refer back to my books, and I'd go, okay, well, this is from this time period with this culture and this religion and these scenarios. Okay, that's why this is here, and this is why it's so important. But is it important now? Is what I always
mm.
kept questioning myself about, really.
Yeah, yeah. It's so. Did you gravitate towards the blunt weapon translation or more the edge?
That's a good question. I love both. It's like for those of you who do grappling, it's like some may say, with the kimono, without the kimono, gi or no gi. Um, I've
Yeah, exactly.
always,
That's a good analogy.
yeah, yeah. Or chess and checkers, right? And some people go like, oh, they don't compare it, but they have definite similarities. So I would say edge weapons. I was more fascinated with one, and I think most people are, to be honest with you, that
Mm,
they're sexy. It is what it is, right? Especially for males, there's something very attractive about that. And as much as if it was attractive, I've always been deathly scared of it. Even after training in FMA and Indonesian martial arts and edge weapons and impact weapons for 15 plus years now, um, it's still some of the scariest stuff I've ever seen.
yeah, yeah,
Period.
there's no doubt. It's funny, when I was, like I mentioned to you, my first exposure, again, I hate to say FMA because it really was more arts, Kung Tao. Um, I got introduced to knife first there from like a sticky hand with Ron referred to as kind of a sticky hands drill. Basically, you're just passing and trying to stay connected. Um, and then when I did go into it, and that time he was Vunak, hard salsa, and a sauna blend, I couldn't make heads or tail of the stick. It's like I was showing a 17 count and a 21 count. I knew it's. I mean, I obviously knew it's seek bone, but
Yeah.
but I couldn't. In other words, I couldn't connect the dots in combat. Where knife, it just like it
Yes.
wasn't. Yeah, okay, you're gonna stab or slash. It just seemed,
It's intrinsic. Yeah, it
yeah,
really is. And
you
that's
know,
something that I talk about. I don't want to go too deep into this because I could spend hours on this, obviously. But for me, I I show the blade as a means to understand lines of
mhm,
attack, and that's equivalent, and that's the same in every style. Whether you're striking and you're bobbing and weaving and coming back on center line and throwing uppercuts or hooks or overhands or whatever you're doing, whether you're grabbing a kimono, regardless of what you're doing, those lines are the same. And obviously, I'm a huge nerd, so I'm surrounded by weapons. But if I'm doing my general 1 and 2 on a diagonal, again, not every system's the same, but most are. I'm doing this 1 and 2. This angle here is the same angle I would adopt left or right hand, right? So that's also the same angle I would have my chokes, the same angle I'd have to slip or bob and weave or hit on,
mhm,
regardless, pakala, sock, whatever. Those are inherent angles, right? My 10 and 2, my 4 and 8. So for me, that's what, because I often get questions like, how do you do so many things? And I go,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm an idiot, right? Like, I find the similarities, right? And so if I can
yeah,
find the similarities in these things, it helps me learn because I'm not the best learner or the best athlete, but I absorb what's there to
mhm,
best utilize it for my purposes and for the purposes of hopefully passing it on to others as well. So the angles are really big for me, and they have to be simple. Like with there's a reason, and this is roughly, it's not guaranteed, but roughly 90-ish% of FMA 1 through 5 is the same. there's a reason,
Arrow, yeah.
right? Like some may go here and here, some may go here and
Yeah,
here.
and you
For the
know what
most
it
part,
is, if the system was influenced by illustration of some shape or way or form, your two and three is
yeah,
gonna be horizontal, your four is gonna, yeah, but
yeah. So with describing that, and I'm grabbing again, I'm surrounded by weapons while I work from home. These angles, there's a tendency with the stick, and the stick is really good because it shows the long range vector. And shameless self promotion for my system, vector. It's called that for a reason. So it's if I follow this angle, I can see where this is projected to you or to me, right? So
mm,
that's the value of that. You start to understand the lines. What tends to happen though is people roll and people start doing wacky stuff with their hands and start doing this stuff and twirling and doing other stuff, and you lose the essence of the line, right? That line has to be
mm.
clear and that intent has to be there. So that's when the blade comes in. So it's you have to find a happy medium, because on the street is you need to know how to defend yourself against those brutal lines, but at the same time you need to understand the ranges, and that's where impact weapons come in.
Yeah, being longer and all that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I definitely grew into stick and all that, but it was always edge weapons for me, and it still is. I'm gonna see a knife out there before I see somebody, charging me with an
yeah,
extreme stick. You know what I mean?
definitely.
Not to say
And
I can't.
the antithesis of that is, those watching probably, I'm going to safely assume, probably have a knife or a folder on them. But at the same time, the general public may have a water bottle, they may have a can of soda, they may have something that's not an edge weapon. So then you start looking at those scenarios where edge weapon versus non-edge weapon, right? So
Yeah,
that's where it's valuable, and you have to understand that. What can I do with a water bottle, right? What can I do with an umbrella
yeah,
that's 23, 24 inches, right? That's more of your serrata size, right?
yeah.
So then you start looking at these things. Well, what do I normally carry? And then it goes down a whole path of, and that's where the intent starts to come from.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, good stuff. I mean, yeah, it's so true. So I mean, all right. So you're going in deeper. So it sounds like ensemble blend as a whole, and then I guess at what point did you kind of segue into FCS?
So another quick question. So I was pursuing the Indesano blend and kind of that umbrella. And honestly, I think it's an amazing bedrock and baseline for people to start with if they're interested in understanding. And I see Guru Danny here, gross motor skills. I talk about that a lot. Gross motor
Mm,
skill versus fine motor skill. It's an unbelievable history lesson in martial arts and culture, as well as just body mechanics and movement. Right,
yeah,
it's unbelievable. So at some point, after pursuing many different styles of martial arts, both the Indesano blends, um, several other styles, kind of World War II combative styles with weapons that were a mix of things, anything from Lacan to deeper into like Tanto Jitsu and other weapon styles. I found my way to FCS Kali, and that was through one of my technically he was a student, but I consider him one of my bestest friends, Angel Torres, who's out of Philly. He trained with the SIOX many years ago, and he joined my school probably over a decade ago, and said, "Hey," and he was no longer affiliated with the SIOX at that point, and said, "Hey, there was this guy at the Sama Samas way back in the early 2000s, and I can't remember his name. I think it was Ray." Right, and he did that, and I was like, Ray. I was like, Ray.
that's
I
the
was like,
one.
what was his last name?
Those are ones I was at. I remember
Yeah,
him
yeah,
coming on. I remember
yes,
him coming on, and soon after that he was Tuhan, and he
yep,
was in it.
yeah. So, and I was like, what's his last name? He's like D Naldo, I think. And I was like, hey, my friend, and here's another shout out. My friend just had him up at his school in the suburbs of Philadelphia. That's shout out to Seafood Joe Corgado in Doylestown, PA. He had him up, and this was probably 2005 or so.
Mm,
And at the time, I was learning from we would have had we were training partners. So he shared everything he knew.
yeah.
I shared everything I knew. I was already friends with Joe, and Joe said, "Hey, I'm having two on Ray Dinaldo in," and I had just missed it. So a month after that, I was like, "Hey, show me everything you know. I'm going to pursue this. I love the style. It fits me and my good friend Angel. We're both bigger guys, so we kind of like being on the inside in close quarters." So I said, "Hey, let's try and pursue this." And then it turned into a whole evolution of doing our best to try and follow Tuan Ray around and learn from him, learn from his gurus, and just absorb everything we could, and in that lineage as a whole. So here we are, fast forward, I think probably close to 10 years later.
Okay, because his system, if I'm not mistaken, it's a blend of modern East, Pikita Turja, and there got to be some Sayak in there, I'm assuming.
Yes. So definitely, it's very good. So it's older. It's funny because I was fortunate enough to be able to attend Kali Evolution this year, and it was Tuan Bill McGrath was there, Jared Wahanki, and then Tuan Ray Dianaldo. So yes, it goes back to at the same time that Tuan McGrath was in New York. Tuan Dianaldo was kind of touring the country. He was on tour with a lot of the masters at the time, and he spent a ton of time with Remy Presses. So that was his influence, and actually that's how his system started. There's some videos and testimonials out there where he's talking and he's participating in a seminar by Grandmaster Remy, and Remy goes, "I want to introduce," and he called his nephew at the time. I want to introduce my nephew. He has his own system. Here he is, and he's like, "Okay," and he was like, "So what's the name of your system?" He's like, "Filipino Combat Systems." So, and that's how it started in reality. So it's those two. You can definitely see the old style PTK with the really close quarters, really unbelievable shifting and body mechanics and gross motor skill, really adhering to that, amongst many other things. Obviously, I don't want to leave anything out.
They still, I don't mean to cut you off. I just, before I forget that, they still do the Turja hand, tapping, the whole 9 yards, or no?
Yeah. It plays a big part in there. He named it differently. He tweaked it for his style in particular.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's you can definitely seeing Tuan McGrath and then seeing where some of those, because I've never formally learned PTK. I've picked things up here and there over the years. Most recently from Sifu Danny, who's on now. But you can definitely draw a line back and see, oh, that's where that comes from.
Encyclopedia, Bill McGrath.
Yeah. So it's that really close quarters. You start to see a lot of the locking and trapping from modern Arnis. And then obviously Sayak played a big part. I think mutually, again, I don't, someone will get offended at me, but there was a mutual discovery there. Let's say that, and influence, especially with the Karambit. So those were the big core elements. There's definitely some elements. Originally, Tuan Ray's family is from Mindanao, so there's definitely some Southern Philippines influence, a little bit of a family system, definitely some Indonesian influence, and he studied a ton. He's done some Chimande, as well as he grew up with actually Kuntao through Tony Laughlin. Him and Sifu Tony Laughlin has spent quite a bit of time growing up with each other as well. And that's actually, ironically enough, some of my Kuntao lineage through Sifu Chris Durban, who I think was on a little bit ago.
I think he did jump in and say.
He did. So shout out to Sifu Chris. Lots of shout outs today. I should get $1 every shout out.
Yeah. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions. Yes, he did check in. We got Rich, we got Coach Sandy, Chris, Eric O'Brien, that guy from Florida. Patrick, he's a funny guy from California. Oh, thanks, Patrick.
There he is. Hey, Sifu.
And we got Sifu Osborne, me, Danny. Yep. All right. Yeah, these are. So, all right. So now, and you're obviously still with FCS. So,
yes, sir.
And then at some point you meet Chris Durban. How did that come about?
Yes. So similar background. I'm teaching at my school around almost the exact same time as I was started training with Tuan Ray. One of my students, Rob Giberson, lives in the Philadelphia area, and started inviting everyone. He's like, "Hey, this guy does this crazy art. He's like smashing, throwing people across the room." And I was like, "I'm in. Just tell me when and where." And at the time, I had brought in Professor James Hunden, who's my small circle instructor, and he has his own flavor of kind of street self-defense small circle. He calls it small circle Jew trap boxing. And it intersected. It was the same weekend that Sifu Chris was in. And I was like, damn, I can't go to this. And I think I stopped in for a couple minutes. My friend Angel, who I mentioned earlier, had the time to stop in and spend a couple of hours. He was like, this is amazing. This fits us. You have to talk to him. You got to figure out how we can train. And then it spawned from there. And ironically enough, both Tuan Ray and Sifu Chris and much of my lineage is in the Gulf Coast of Florida or Central
Florida,
Florida.
right? Oh, yeah,
Yes. So very fortunate. Whenever I go down there, I try and do as much as humanly possible to learn from them. And then later on, I found out that those intersect, right? So it was really interesting to see how those intersect through Small Circle, right, with Remy, and obviously Grandmaster Wally J, but also the Quintal lineage intersect. So it's really, really cool to trace some of those things back and kind of JKD a lot of the things. I've found myself pursuing almost accidentally a lot of the things that Bruce Lee had pursued, almost accidentally through different lineages and through different things.
yeah.
And it's really fascinating.
Wow. I don't want to go too because Chris is coming on the
Yes.
show. We're just working out a schedule with the football and referee issue there. Damn refs. No.
Yes. So that's a good time. Like and share so you don't miss that episode.
Yeah. So I don't want to. So all right, let's go to this because my Kung Tao train with Ron was like, that just down under. That I lack of a better way to put it. Not the most elegant way, but jungle is the best. Is the first thought that comes to my mind. I kind of see a lot Flair, Moro. You know what I mean? So just briefly, again, not to step on Chris's when he comes on the show, just I guess in summation, like what could you say about it?
So I'll say this: there's many more than this, but there's two probably core lineages, and please, everyone's welcome to correct me. From my research and my discovery and talking to as many people as possible, there seems to be two main, there are others, two main branches of Kung Tao, at least that kind of landed in the United States for the most part. There's the Trois lineage through Uncle Bill and his family, and then through the Reeders lineage. So Willem Reeders.
I've heard that name. Okay.
Yes. So Willem Reeders is older than Uncle Bill, and that whole lineage. So at one point it was called Liu Song Kung Fu, Royal Kung Fu.
Okay.
And the bastardized translation was Kun Tao, right? Similar to Jeet Kune Do, right? Kun Tao, way of the fist. So it absolutely has its history in Hakka martial arts, which most people you would talk to say, oh, it's Southern Chinese. But if you follow and look back at the migration of the Hakka, they were persecuted from the north and moved their way south. And
Fujian province?
Yeah, you could see how it migrated south and then picked up the Indonesian flair in there. So you see a lot of Tonglong, you see a lot of potentially other systems, some mantis systems in there. You see definitely animal influences in there. And what's really unique about Sifu Chris's style is that he's been in law enforcement for decades, and many of his students have been as well. And he really stripped away the things that he felt weren't useful. Again, very JKD-ish, right? So he stripped away the things that he felt weren't useful, and he had to utilize day to day. He literally depended on for self-defense and self-preservation. And it was, essentially restraining people who didn't want to be restrained, people who were, out of their mind, 302 on drugs, mentally ill, sometimes naked and covered in all types of stuff, and had to save himself and others, as well as other prisoners. So he stripped away all the forms, he stripped away a lot of stuff and got to the core mechanics of what he felt was the art. And that's his style. He calls it Kung Tao combat arts. And that's what his focus is on. And that's what attracted me to that. So it plugged for me, it plugged right in. And then later on, I found out how it really did plug in to everything else I was already doing. So literally and figuratively. So it was really cool.
Nice. And we're, because I'm going to Brian Purdy. I'm going to see Brian Purdy's found me down to Florida Tuesday, Thursday. He's just an hour outside of Orlando.
Yes. So Tuan Ray is in the Orlando area, like I think it's Auburn, Orlando area. And then he has tons of gurus up and down.
I was going to say, there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah.
Most of my time I spend with Guru Cody Chilson. He's in Fort Myers, Cape Coral area, as well as Sifu Chris. Sifu Chris is in Fort Myers, and has lots of students in the area as well. But definitely a worthy trip if you can make it down.
Yeah. Right. If I can cajole Brian.
It's warning. It's painful. So
Yeah,
it's, and this probably alludes to something we'll talk about later. It's um, you're not going to walk into a class with 400 people. Let's say that, right?
yeah, yeah.
There's few because again, intent versus intensity. You have to feel it to believe it. Let's say that. We'll leave it there.
No, I remember with Ron, there was people coming in and out. It just it was rough, man. I mean, just the manipulations and just yeah, it was yeah. I mean, it's
And
going
Sifu Chris and his students are unbelievable teachers, but there's a gap there where for you to progress in the art, you have
back.
to understand what it feels like. It's part of the conditioning, both mental
Yeah,
and physical. So again, I don't want to scare people away, but if you get a chance to train with anyone in Sifu Chris's lineage, it's an unbelievable art, and I absolutely love it. But it's not easy. Any endeavor that you take on, especially if life or death matters,
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
going to be easy physically or mentally.
One of my teachers calls that pain distractions part of the syllabus.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
So,
Focus. We'll call it
yeah.
focus.
So, but all right. So then, okay, just for the audience, again, you can keep this just general. Like, what would you say overall, in a generic sense, the similarities, difference between your FMA training and the Kuntao?
So if we're going to compare, so I do so many different, I have done, let's say, so many different styles of FMA, from
Mm.
Tapado to Inasano blend to
Tapado, I'm sorry, I
yes.
got because I've been trying to get the Tapado guy on now for 2 years. Who'd you train Tapado with?
So it's Guru Emilio, and I'll share his info. He's
California?
yes, out of California.
I heard about him, the guy in
Yes,
California. Okay.
yes, a beast, absolute beast. And if maybe there's a line here where you can, I like, I'm bigger, I like smashing things,
Yeah, I've been trying to
maybe
find somebody.
yes, I'll connect you. He's unbelievable.
Okay.
And I had my introduction to it was me bugging every year Tuhan Ray. And I don't want to go off track. I want to make sure I talk about the connections between the Kuntao and Kali. But every year I bug Tuan Ray. 8 years in a row we've had Tuan Ray in to Philadelphia area for a Philadelphia camp, and then we have one coming up September 17th and 18th in Philly. And every year he does something special for the camp. So it's like, oh, what do you want to do this year? And then I'm always the big nerd, so I'll yell out random stuff that I'm actually really interested in.
Mm.
So I had been bugging him for years about the yo-yo, right? I was like, could you show the yo-yo? And I remember him looking at me, and he looked at me and he goes, why the hell do you want to learn a yo-yo? And I was like, well, it's one of the Filipino weapons, isn't it? He goes, yeah, but no one's ever asked me to do the yo-yo. I go, well, could you do it? He goes, yeah, I could do it. And I was like, could you do it this year? He's like, it's going to take me a while. And he spent probably 4 or 5 years researching it to make sure he could represent it correctly, right? He's a historian himself, and he did that last year. So it was the first year after years of bugging him. My point being, in between there, I had asked him probably 3 years ago, hey, if you can't do yo-yo, could you do staff, sungkad, tapado, something with a staff or a cane? And he had spent a little bit of time doing some tapado, and he showed kind of a mix of what he learned from tapado and some Compulan stuff. And it was awesome. There's some videos floating out there where he breaks a broomstick clean. I've never seen this before. It's freakish. It doesn't splinter. It looks like you sawed it in half. It just completely breaks. There's a video out there. If you type in FCS Kali, it's probably from 2 years ago. It was the craziest stuff I've ever seen. It's like probably as close as you can get to internal arts. But that being said, and a good segue to Kuntao, the highest level of Kuntao is really internal. What I felt was similar was a lot of the movements in Kuntao and FCS. FCS has a lot of draws from center line, and it uses Pakal a lot. Those movements are in same with the Indonesian flare and even some of the Kung Fu flare that's in Kuntao. So they really pair really well with each other. and really focused on gross motor skills, proper mechanics. That's what I saw, very close quarters combatives between the two. And that's what attracted me to both of them.
Nice, nice. Okay, okay. No, I'm sure there was some parallel for sure. You touched in Krav Maga, right? Too.
So I did Krav Maga here and there for probably 2 years early on when I was doing my discovery.
Okay.
Most recently, and whenever someone gets a chance to teach me something, I absorb it. So
Yeah.
I'm always open. I hate equally and I love equally all arts. So let's say that. So anytime I get a chance to learn from someone, that's what I want to do, because even if I don't like a technique, or I do like a technique, or whatever it is, there's something someone can show me. Maybe it's a different way of absorbing something or tweaking something, or a way of even presenting it. Those are all things valuable to me. And most recently with Krav, I was invited to do the International Krav Camp, which took place 2 weeks ago in Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania. And I was one of 40 instructors there. And I focused in on kind of my street grappling system, which I call combat jits, short for jiu-jitsu, but combat jits, which is primarily, and I joke around, it has very little to do with jiu-jitsu, even though I'm a first degree jiu-jitsu black belt. And then it's about self-defense and getting out of a bad situation. And then my vector weaponology system, which is a kind of ground up approach to weapons, particularly edge weapons for anyone. You don't have to be a martial artist, but it fits in and can plug in, both systems can plug into your current curriculum or current training, either way. So you could be doing arts already or sport already and have either of those plug into your system. And they also plug into each other, which is, nice. I think, kind of unique.
With well, not a giant. Segue into grapple. You're grappling, whether it's Paulson, BJJ. How have they complemented? How have you made them complement, I should say, your Southeast Asian training?
So one thing I know, for me, it was always that close quarter self-defense happens in close quarters, right? I think it's something that, I don't know why, it's kind of a misnomer. People are always at extended ranges with like a knife to the throat, gun to the head. Someone comes at you with a hatchet, weird stuff, right? You see lots of times. Someone comes in with a front kick, right? Those are all things that are obviously possible, right? But for me, it's like, if things are going to pop off, and then you start looking at statistics as well, things are going to pop off, they're going to probably start with a push or a grab, right? Then you look at statistics, things happen within 3 to 6 feet, primarily within 4 feet. So that's touching range, right? I could touch you, you could touch me. So I always felt it was, you had to focus in on that close quarters first. Once you understood body mechanics and footwork, you should be spending a majority of your time in that range, so you can avoid being in that range, right? So that was always my focus. I was like, well, how could you not spend a majority of your time? I don't want to be here. Well, I better learn how to not to be here, right?
Yeah, it's
and
like,
some of that,
I don't want to be on the ground, but if I'm on
and
it,
that's my thing. And that's again, for those of you who may have jumped in a little bit later, I'm pretty blunt with stuff. I piss a lot of people off because I say BJJ is not great for self-defense, right? And quite frankly, it's not good at all. What it does have benefits, don't get me wrong. Going day in, day out, 99, almost 100%, and trying to survive on the mat, that attrition is
that's grappling right there.
It's huge value, right? That's where the value is in grappling styles, especially BJJ, and being able to go 100% for the most part all the time and fight a resisting opponent. Where it's not good is, and this is with any arts, not just with BJJ, you have gentlemen's rules, right? You have soft squishy mats, you're wearing pajamas, right? When something doesn't feel good, you tap out, you quit, right? There's not multiple opponents, there's not weapons, there's on and on and on, right? So when you go, oh, this is for self-defense, and you go, well, what part of this is self-defense, right? You go through the list, the checklist, and you're like, I don't think any of this was real today, right? And you go, would this work outside? So that's my question, right?
You definitely must have pissed people off.
Oh yeah, I get people so angry. And it's funny, and even like I have a whole portion of my combat jiu-jitsu, and it talks about, and I did this at the Krav camp, it was just talking about how to stand up, right? Because bad things get perpetuated over and over again. The stand up from Brazilian jiu-jitsu, getting up off the ground, is good, right? I'm not gonna poop on it. It's good. The thing is, most people have their head, they're looking down at the mat. So in street self-defense scenarios, there's a girlfriend, a wife, a boyfriend, an uncle, a cousin, a mom
Your loved
getting
ones,
ready to boot you right in the face, right?
or you
And
got
people
loved
go,
ones. Yeah.
that doesn't happen. And then typically what I do is I pull out my phone and go, oh, let's take a look at this. And UFC, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at this video. And then I show people, right? Or people send me videos, and there's people getting blasted in the face trying to get up from the bottom. And I go, well, this is the highest level of combat. So I'm not lying. Look at this. Don't believe me. Look at the video.
Yeah,
right? So for me, that's why I focused in on those close quarters. And that's why I feel grappling is so important. And there's like, and I've talked to a lot of people. I talked to as many people as possible to kind of learn their perspective. There's a weird in grappling arts, and this is starting to change a little bit, and I think it's changing across the board. But in grappling arts, for years, grapplers didn't do weapon stuff. They refused to, right? They're like, oh, I'll just take it to the ground. I'll take it back and choke you, right? And then the weapons guys are like, I don't need grappling. I'll cut you from here, right? And then the projectile weapons, the firearms guys go, oh, I'll draw on you and I'll shoot before you get to me.
Why you ain't charge your center?
Yeah. And then all of them are nonsense, right? So the beauty, right, is again JKD or whatever you want to call it, right, is that Venn diagram where everything starts to fit together. You have to know all of it, and in my opinion, you need to really understand that close quarters element of it, because that's where stuff happens, right? People don't get in fist fights from 20 feet away. People get in fist fights, they start doing this, right? I call it the World Star or the old John Wayne. That's where, in knife cuts too, that's where they happen, right? The old John Wayne is back here, right? And then the knife cut is here. It's the same angle, right? So why aren't we spending most of our time in close quarters doing that, right? Instead of grenade defenses or, hatchet from the back, right? Or
I know. It's
teaching law enforcement to throw up triangles and choke people out before they draw their weapon. It boggles my mind.
I know. There's crazy. So many other things that, like, I know. Here's a question that I've always kind of, just from FMA discussion, you see this dynamic, and because I'm the moderator, because I used to have a group. I used to have a group before FMA discussion, nowhere the size of FMA discussion. It was called Blade Tech something. And it was pretty much on edge weapons. And this is going back 2007. So I was a nobody. And what I found out, I was just starting to really just upset people, because I was really, with videos, evidence, really pushing, the need for clinch and knife grappling. You got to go beyond the dueling and what have you and all that. And but what and I started a little FMA discussion. I just saw, like, I'm just not gonna do this, man. I'm just not. But the short of the long, why do you think there's just so much? Like, I look at a lot of these FMA guys and they're thinking, and I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen. No. And because you don't have grappling, and because you don't do clinch, it's not going to just miraculously happen overnight. You're not going to get a sudden infusion of this material, and that. And but I tend not to just, but there is an aspect of delusion. I hate to say it, like what they think they're going to do versus what is going to come out based on their area of neglect. So my question to you is, why do you feel each of these camps neglect one the other?
It's one of two things. Fear, right? Fear leads to lack of confidence, right? Or lack of fear, which leads to overconfidence, right? So for me, it's one of those two things, right? If you look at a lot of grapplers, again, I'm generalizing, a lot of grapplers go, oh, I'll put you in a Kimura, right? Or a figure four, or Udagarame, whatever you want to call it, right? Double top wrist lock, and lock you out and break your arm, and you let go of the weapon. If you look at Indonesian or FMA, and again, I'm generalizing, it's, oh, well, I'll cut you. I'll see that coming. I'll do this move, use my female triangle, get out of the way. And what happens is when those things don't work, or they're presented in a manner that could essentially show a hole in it, there's holes in everything, right? When it shows a gaping hole, people start to lose confidence in what you're teaching, right? So if you position everything that this is the way, right? This is the ultimate, blah blah blah. And the big thing for many years, it's gone on for years. The blah 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 military uses this, right? So that's like the catchphrase of like, oh, this is legit, right? So it's that focus on things that are not realistic, because if you show things that are realistic, it would kill your school, it would kill your art, it would kill your teaching, right? And the things that, and I'm an advocate for this, the things for you to learn real self-defense, you have to be able, and it's not for everyone again, but it should be for everyone. You have to have a progressive sequence of stress, both physical and mental, that accustoms you to hitting and getting hit. Now, and I don't want to go off the topic, but I've worked with people of all calibers. When I had my gym for almost 10 years, we had doctors and lawyers and vets and you name it, professionals in there. No one ever left with a black eye or broken teeth or anything else, but we would bang. We'd hit hard. You have to, male or female, right? Primarily female when we closed, but you have to be able to do that, and that takes time. And if you're not,
you got to build them up to that. The stress inoculation, the
exactly,
contact,
right?
Yeah,
but that's not. You're not going to have a school 400 or 500 people banging.
No,
you're not going to do it, right? And you have to be able to do it. You have to be able, and I call it banging or smashing, but it's not. We go in there and we hit each other in the face every day. It's not that. It's a long progression of, can we use this concept and this principle and merge them and see what are the results, right? Does this work? Does this work against someone bigger? Does this work someone smaller? Can you do this out of breath? Can you do this with the lights off? Can you do this as fast as you can? Can you do it as hard as you can? Can you do it pads, right? And that's when the banging starts coming into play. You're hitting the pad as hard as you can. You're trying to escape. You're trying to find an exit. Those things are where the smashing comes into play. But that's a progressive stance and a progressive way of teaching, where you're not just kicking each other in the head, every class. That's not sustainable. For me, it has to be scalable, sustainable, and efficient, right? So if it meets that criteria and you have increasing levels of stress and there's a progression in there, then you find a good equation of that X, that the two hockey sticks meet each other, and you're finding a happy place in the middle.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think, much to your point, I think also ego comes into play with the cross-pollination of the training. I really do. I think and I'm going to be honest, I think some of these guys, they get to a point, they just, and I'm not saying necessarily be showed up, but they just don't want to have to look at the material, change it, go to their students. Hey guys, hey, we're going to do some changes. My information got exposed, literally, but I was exposed to new information, and some are just not going to do it. I've seen that from a discussion. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, and like you see, we've had this talk, man. You see my videos playing how people trying to stab me and kill me. Yeah, it's real fun. But the thing is, man, if you're not trained that, what do you think you're going to do out there?
And that's, you brought up a great point with ego. I kind of consider ego a byproduct of confidence, right? So if you have a big ego, you think you're really confident. You have the appearance of lots of confidence, but oftentimes it's a fear, right? And it's that fear, lack thereof, or overabundance of, that you're like, oh, I don't need to do that, right? I have a black belt in this. I'm not going to go over there and learn that because mine's superior. My system already has grappling, right? My system already does this, right? We have this and that and the other thing. And for FMA, it was like, oh, we have Dumag, right? Oh, we have Panatukan, or we have blah blah blah, right? We have a cane system, right? And then, not to pick on FMA, but it's just in general, we have that, right? Is always the thing, right? So people will always are quick to say that, but in reality, can you always take off the kimono? Can you take off the rig? Can you take off whatever and say, hey, I'm here to learn. Let's figure this out, right? And that's where intent comes into play. What are you trying to do, right? Is the end result. Am I trying to just hang out with others around my age and BS with them? Am I trying to, kind of do half-ass and then get beers afterward? Am I trying to learn an art because I'm Indonesian, or I'm Filipino, or I'm Korean? Or am I trying to learn how to defend myself, right? Those are all different intents. And you're going to find someone who's going to teach you that, right? Because those are all very, very different things and should have different instructors, just like a university.
That whole thing with just, Yeah, I just, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I look from afar and I'm just like, and I just wish that, like, like for instance, like Dumog, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist. What is a Western creation, Western name? I mean,
Yep.
that's been on the show cover too. But you know what? In the Philippines, and I've talked to guys in the Philippines about this, it is a catch-all term for anything goes under that umbrella. So
Yep.
if they got BJJ and they got wrestling, guess what? It's Dumog now.
Stumog. Yeah.
So what is Dumont? Maybe that the Asano Academy versus what you know what I mean? It's kind
Yeah.
of like a catch-all phrase, so to speak. And I don't think there's anything, and that doesn't bother me because at least they're being honest over there. Say no, we use the term Dumog for an all-encompassing thing. I don't have an issue with that. They're being honest.
Sure.
I think that's okay. But we got a question from Rich here. I just want to make sure I don't miss it. And his question is,
Yeah. It's a funny joke.
Sensei Allen.
Do all is it true that all systems come from Krav? Unfortunately, no. I hate to break it to everyone. All systems
I hate to
don't come
say
from
this to the
Krav.
community.
I know, yeah, people are going to hate on me for that one, but thank you, Rich. And all systems don't come from jujitsu, Gracie jujitsu, to be exact.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, we that's a joke we have all the time. That I've heard wacky things. I've heard dirty, and this is a funny one because we were talking about Dumog, dirty boxing. People get upset about where that comes from, blah blah blah.
Right.
I've even seen, and again, not to hate on Krav. Krav say they were the originators of dirty boxing. I've seen that too. So that's one that's out there. Yeah, I had the same reaction. But to get on a serious note, Sifu Danny has some great stuff in here with sparring shows the BS real quick, right? So you can play patty cake until
especially Edge MPN against Edge.
Yep.
Edge
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a really great point that people don't talk about. And another one is confidence. There's not enough people being able to say, "Hey, I'm wrong," or "Let's try this." Right? When I approach things, especially with my system, the origins of it were, I asked myself and I'd ask others. My point was to ask other people who are higher ranked than me in everything. I didn't care what art you were from. Can you break this? Was my question. Right? Can you break this? And they go, "What do you mean?" Like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. What's your solution to this?
Can you find a hole in my game?
Yeah. And they would go, "Oh, well, that was really hard, or that was really easy, or there's a hole here, right? Or I was able to exploit you here." I go, "Oh, okay. I never wrote that down." Right.
Yeah,
So I would constantly lose, right? I was constantly losing. And that's the similar mentality to grappling too, right? In any art, if you're really testing it, but you're constantly losing, you're constantly getting humbled. But in that evolution, it's really the scientific method. It's that OODA loop, right? You keep going through. And then at some point you have, hopefully, something close to a diamond. I'm not going to say a diamond because that's too egotistical to say, but you have something that's really, really probably
something that's coming together and giving you the best, highest percentage. This is what I tell my students and all this. Like, look, and not to bury a dead horse on the ground, but MPN against knife is the best thing. Is like, hey, I'm not telling you this is 100%. This is what has come out the highest percentage based on helmets, full resistance. I think that's what you can do. You know what I mean? Integrity, self, honesty to the community, your students, or what have you. And I think that's all we can do. But you made a point before. Getting like-minded people together. Like, I look at certain camps and you see it, and this is why I have so much respect for Burton Richardson. I mean, that guy just, really puts stuff to the test, and that despite what module he's doing, whether it's just CLS stuff, and I think there's some other good camps out there too. I'm just Burton is the first one that comes to mind. I think Marco does some things I like. You and folks, in case you don't know it, me and Alan are getting together, New York, and we're gonna put the knife on the ground and we're gonna see where it goes. So, but I think there's some good camps out there that really invoke that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they don't care who finds solution. They're all in together. There's a common goal. But I don't. It's not common. You know what I mean?
It's not. No, it's not. Even, I mean, you can even draw lines again. People like, this is FMA, but even in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, for years, people, if I had a best friend at another school, we couldn't talk to each other, right? We couldn't, because there were sacred techniques, right? But now you're starting to see in all different areas more of a melting pot of, you kind of see what you see in Southern California, where there's, and even Northern California, this is like a mix of everyone coming in. There's barbecues. There's 10 different systems there.
And this is BJJ?
Well, it's FMA. FMA, there's some
okay,
big barbecues that happen. And in FMA too, there's lots of systems starting to happen now where they're coming in and they realize that, hey, we all make each other better, right? Let's train to make each other better. There's no secret technique, right?
I know. Gosh, well, I hope that continues. Coach Shanny too. I like I think he's on the same. Matter of fact, I know he's on the same page with us. At least he's doing the grappling and all that. But you got a lot of those, man. And they get on the ground, man. I don't care. What your rank is. I don't care how long you've been doing FMA, man. And if you haven't even experienced the ground or played with just from a maintenance point of view, from how to get out of position or get to a better position or back to your feet, man, that's going to be that's a tough world, man.
Absolutely. And for me, that's why, it's a big focus, because it's not, and I don't say specific Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I usually say grappling or wrestling in general, because for me, the Newaza, the ground grappling of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo or Sambo is just a tiny fraction of it. Right. It's like saying the clinch in Thai boxing, right? It's one tiny element, or the clinch in boxing, period. Right. So looking at that, it's, if you learn grappling in general, holistically, right, you are forced to understand footwork and body mechanics and leverage and rooting, right? You can go deep into internal arts, right? There's rooting in there. They're all the same principles that you'd find in any other art at the highest level. Is in wrestling or grappling, right? Now, that doesn't mean it's the solution for everything. But the beauty of that is that you inherently already know that stuff, and ground grappling comes as part of that.
Yeah.
So you already know how to move. The issue with BJJ oftentimes is now it's getting better and better with it, but it's just a ground, right? Yeah. It's oftentimes slap hands and fall to your butt, right? So that's not advantageous to self-defense, right? Let's be honest.
No, I agree. Here, that's the same. You look at, I get these books and I look at the hieroglyphics in Egypt, in the pyramids, and guess what they were doing? Grappling.
Yep.
I mean, so every culture, some shape, way, or form, kind of played around with this, experienced it, found obviously similar solutions. I see Rich's question there. Rich, that's gonna come up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were talking about history. If those nerds out there that want to look it up, look up Beni Hassan. It's the tombs of Beni Hassan. You'll see it's famous. Most of you probably have seen it. Their wrestling moves. It looks like freestyle wrestling or catch wrestling from 5,000 years ago. It's unbelievable. Same moves that we use today. Yeah.
Yes. So, you brought up, so in the test run, you mentioned intent versus intensity. So I know you didn't go way deep into it. Just touched the surface. But just for what did you mean by that?
It means a couple things. So for me, intent, oftentimes I'll get asked, even when I had med school, which was, I didn't take it as insulting, but it was kind of insulting. People would come in and go, "Hey, Alan, what's the best martial art to do for self-defense?" And I'd go well, what do you think I'm teaching here? Right. So, but that's besides the point. But for intent, what are you trying to do? And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Am I trying to learn a historic art? Am I trying to, just like shooting, right? So if I want to learn how to shoot an AR versus a Glock, pistol versus a whatever, right? I'm going to go to those specific people or people that can show me those individual things. What's my goal, right? Am I trying to enter a competition? Am I trying to do clay shooting? Am I trying to just defend myself, right? Those are all different things. There's crossover, but there's different intents with each of them. So that's first meaning of intent for me. Number two, is intent. You need to have, once you establish that, that's kind of your baseline. Your next baseline is, what's my intent? What am I trying to do? Okay, say the scenario, I, Alan, want to learn edge weapon self-defense. Good, check the box. Okay, edge weapon self-defense. We already checked that box. What's next? Well, we need to build an intent, right? So an intent, anytime we throw a punch, a kick, or a slash or thrust with a knife, it's got to be real, right? So you got to make contact, right?
You know my coach today, right?
Yeah. You got to feel it, right? And there's lots of training tools. Obviously, over the years, more and more tools have become accessible. Obviously, it started off with kitchen knives that you try and dull on the cement and tape up, put cardboard on, to awesome aluminum knives by Bob Berge and Tuan Ray over the years.
Crack your knuckles and elbow.
And you're all bloody, and some people on occasion would, eat one. And then to poly.
Those days.
To poly, and then eventually now there's stuff like AccuStrike is making flexible weapons.
Or the Nox.
Right?
The Nox are really good.
Knock knife with the flexibility. There's tons of those now. So you need to feel. I'm really big on that, and I talked a lot about this at the Croft camp that I was at 2 weeks ago. When you slash, you're not going like this, like right. You're not tickling someone with this, right? It's not for massages, right? What's this for? It's a training tool, right? I'm trying to slash you. I'm going to slash you hard. You're going to leave with a couple marks, maybe a couple bruises, right? But you're not going to go home broken, right? So you got to feel this. I'm slashing, I'm thrusting as hard as I can, but that's slow progression. I'm not cracking you in the face the first day, but that takes time, right? So it's important that we build that intent, because too many arts, right? And again, not to poop on any individual arts, but Japanese arts are really famous for this. To go hiss, and then they stop.
Yeah, they're stopping right there, and you're like, oh.
And the guy does 15 things, right? So one of my old instructors used to say, well, that if you're stopping, meaning that this is in slow motion, I didn't get to the end point yet. So at some point, this is slowing down enough to where I can do 15 things in the time you're doing one, right? So somehow you're speeding up time and slowing down time, and you can do 15 things in that time period. So it's a really funny way of looking at it, but that's intent, right? I don't have the intent to kill you with that fake knife. So you're going to learn things that aren't appropriate for self-defense. You have to hit. You have to. Even if it's like this, right? Or like this, you have to be able to do it.
These are just touch things. Right. I mean, if it touches lightly, the intent was there to reach you. And, even that as a starting baseline, I mean, that's certainly better than you're leaving in the air, or you call it like sewing machine. Yeah.
Baseline is this, right? And then as you progress, it becomes this, and then it becomes this, right? You're going as hard as you can to feel it, right? Again, we're using safety equipment. We're not just going wild with real knives. There's safety equipment, but you have to, that's why there's these training equipment, right? We have to go seemingly as hard as we can, similar to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? We need to be able to go as seemingly as hard as we can, safely as possible, in a scalable, sustainable fashion, in order to replicate potential threats. If that's your intent for self-defense.
Amen. No argument here. Okay, minority versus majority. You touched on that in the test run. So what say you about that?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit earlier, and it has to do with, we quite honestly, we live in a bubble. I think probably most of the people mentioning things here in the chat or watching or that will watch probably have similar points of view. Hopefully, if not, it is what it is. But it's we are the minority watching this show. We're the minority as martial artists, right? So I asked this question at the Croft camp, and I go, how many of you, and there was a crowd there, maybe 24 people that were taking my classes in my class, and I was like, who works with another martial artist? And I think everyone raised their hand, right? Obviously, we're at a martial arts camp. Who works with a martial artist? Everyone raised their hand. I go, who's an instructor here? Everyone raised their hand. So of course you're going to work with people who are martial artists. I go, when you go out to a restaurant, or you go visit your family, or you go hang out with a friend of a friend, or you go to the bar or whatever, how many of those people are martial artists? That's what you should be asking yourself, right? Because your bubble, your sphere of influence, say the 100 people you interact with on a weekly basis, those are 100 people. Maybe those 100 play martial arts and crafts, right? as Guru Denny would say, right? Martial arts and crafts. There's 100 people, right? But in reality, of those 100 people, you maybe know 1,000 people, right?
Yeah.
So you have to look at, it's such a tiny fraction of people that do martial arts, and then even a tinier fraction of people that do FMA, and then even a tinier fraction of people that do KI or Inosanto Blend or FCS, right? And then a tinier fraction of people that teach, and a tinier fraction of people that make it realistic, right? So it's like an infinite scale away from the quote unquote common people or the everyday people you would encounter who are not martial artists, right?
Yeah.
We don't think of it that way, and we need to, especially if we're teaching, right? It's an antithesis of what we're doing. And I brought this up in yesterday when we had our preview. I'm going to repeat the same thing I said there because it's something I saw recently. If I'm teaching a technique that requires me at 235 pounds to hold on to an arm, to X block and grab an arm and hold on to it and wrestle the knife away, okay, maybe I could pull it off. Would I rely on that technique for my grandmother or my wife or my sister or a 100-pound female or 15-year-old kid? I'd have to say no, right? So not to say that technique won't work or you can't make it work, but is it for the majority of people who are not martial artists? Probably not, right? Yeah. So if you hold yourself to that level of accountability, that level of intent, right? That's the focus here for me for self-defense. But again, teaching self-defense, you don't see people, rarely, there are some, but you don't see true self-defense schools that have 500 people in them, right? That are strictly teaching self-defense.
Yeah,
right? They're in a garage. They're in a garage banging, beating each other, right?
Yeah.
But that's the stuff that works, right? And same with firearms or anything else. What's your intent? And we'll talk about firearms real quick. If my intent is I want to learn how to shoot my Glock 19 in case someone comes in my house and attacks me, right? That's a scenario, right? So that's my intent, okay? So I go to the range 3 times a week, 15 yards away. I go pop, pop, pop. I put 100 rounds down range and then I leave, okay? So my intent we already established, but am I replicating something that's even remotely realistic? No, right? So what's the intensity and the intent behind that, right? In reality, your heart's beating through your throat, through your neck, right? You're out of breath, you're dizzy, you're sweating. Someone's about to kill you, right?
Anxiety.
You're shaking, right? Anxiety, the adrenaline, right? Your epinephrine, the adrenaline's spiking through the roof, right? Maybe you're wrestling with a person, right? Maybe you're covered in blood, right? Maybe you're covered in other bodily fluids, right? That's the stuff that's real, right? You lose function of parts of your body, right? You have to rely on gross motor skills. Those are the things that you need to practice under. And how do I do that? I go to range. I can't even draw and shoot downrange. Well, you got to find scenarios that you can replicate similar things, right? Is it dunking your hands in ice cold water and then taking your gun and shooting it in the woods at a private facility, right? Is it you doing 50 push-ups or 50 burpees and then using your airsoft or trying to draw from concealed? It's things like that where you're hitting the pads and throwing knees and then drawing, or grappling with someone and then sweeping them and getting on top and drawing. Those are the things that are real. It's not shooting down range, right? That's your alphabet. That's kindergarten stuff, right? Yeah. If you're intent on defending yourself, you need to have some level of intensity, and it's got to be real. Otherwise, your intent is garbage.
No, you're building a skill set, but without the other factors, real life factors. It's like, much of what you were saying about that. One time we put lotion on our hands. We were doing empty hand against neck defense. Oh my freaking God.
And talking about minority and majority, how many people, right? I've done that too, right? I've done baby oil.
Miserable.
How many people, and I'm sure there's going to be some comments. We'll go down a dark path here, but there's how many people do you think actually do edge weapons training using some type of liquid to make sure they couldn't get the
disarm? I'm sure it's right. Like you just said, 1% of the population trains martial arts. Out of that 1%, now you go FMA. Well, that 1% probably went to, I couldn't even, a tenth of a percent.
Fractions.
Now out of that percent of FMA, how many of them really train and being as nice? You're talking about a few camps.
Yeah. Like you're talking like a handful of people out of probably 1 million.
That's
right?
what I
Or
mean.
hundreds of
Like
thousands, right?
Burton, myself, Marco, you. I know there's others. I'm just
Yeah, there's
people
others.
are
Yeah,
coming to my mind. But that lotion day, man. Oh my God.
it's horrible. But people don't. And then you look at that and like, that's crazy. I can't do that in my school, right? Well, like, okay, that's understandable. But are you really teaching self-defense then? Right?
Mm,
That's the question, and I'm not going to answer that for you. But then, like, because that's real, right?
yeah.
You get sweaty, same thing. And again, this is where grappling comes into play. There's a huge difference when you're grappling with someone with a kimono, or you take the kimono off, you take the rash guard off or the t-shirt off, and you're skin to skin trying to take someone down or trying to get up. For that fact, it's a different world,
No, I
right?
know. Just
So
from
now you
grappling with
introduce a
you, I know.
weapon into that, and
It sucks.
it's a whole talk about
It
arts. It's
sucks. I
it's not
know.
FMA.
It
It's not
freaking
grappling. It's
sucks.
right. It's
Like what
street.
we, you know what we do? Like like I mean, you've done this too, man, and it just is awful. Like I never went for ranks and ground fighting, PJJ. I just did all that. I just but like but yeah, we'll be like that, and then we're in the move, and then somebody like throws a knife in there,
Yeah.
there, or it just sucks, man. And like
Yeah.
you might not be in the most favorable position, but you know what? Too bad.
Yeah. And what do you have to rely on? You have to move, right? I
Oh,
always say in this order, smash,
yeah.
right? Well, number one is run, smash, right? Grab. That's the order. Run, smash, grab, right? And run, you can move to any position, right? I'm trying to escape, right? So if I can escape ahead of time, I identify something, I run, right? If I can smash and then run, I do that.
Yeah.
If I try and smash, it fails, and then I grab, then I still run, right? So that's my criteria. It has to be simple, right? I'm always trying to run. I'm always trying to get out of there. These are horrible situations, and
Oh,
when you can introduce
yeah.
your edge weapon or your firearm or anything else, we do a ton of that. And I see Sifu Danny said the strobe light. We do that. Loud music, strobe light. My good friend Sifu Joe used to use candlelight all the time. Heavy, just crazy metal music.
Oh, you're playing the
Um,
music like,
yeah. All of that builds a type of intensity
yeah,
because your intent is to survive. That switch, that reptilian brain kicks on, and it's survival.
yeah.
That's you have to feel that and understand that. And some arts do that, some arts don't, right? And that's what my focus always has been. That's the focus of Sifu Chris's Kun Tao. When you start to really get into it, it's how can I survive? How can I preemptively get out of this? And if I can't, I need to run and smash or run, smash, grab, right?
Yeah.
And usually very little grab.
Then you throw, like I give my students the three E's, egress, equalizer, ethical. You got loved ones now. You throw that in the mix.
Yes.
Now it's like, no, you're not running. You have an ethical obligation for loved ones. You're creating the egress for them.
That's a whole other topic.
And different dynamic and stress and failures and chaos. And
I almost, again, as an instructor, I hold myself to a high degree of accountability, but we all should, right? And if I carry a firearm or I have intent to potentially use a firearm at any point or edge weapon or even empty hands, I have to understand the implications of that, of where I'm at and what I did, right? So, and I talked about this in the pre-show. There was, for those of you who have seen, I apologize for repeating myself, but recently I chatted with a good friend of mine, amazing martial artist, Kurt Norsini. He's a defense attorney, but he talked about what's your red line, right? So what's my threshold for using violence, essentially, right? And what's the accountability behind that? Is it someone breaking into someone breaks in the door, I shoot him, right? Is it someone breaks into my door, steals my wallet, grabs my TV, right? Is it someone starts making their way up the stairs? Is it someone jiggling the door of my bedroom? Is it someone coming in the bedroom, right? What's my threshold? And then once I establish that, right, similar to intent, and I do shoot them or injure them or do whatever I need to do, what's my next step, right? Some people say, oh, throw the knife out the window. Some people say, call 911. Some people say, well, it's also my duty, and this is how I feel, it's also my duty to make sure I do everything I can so this person doesn't die. And that sounds like the antithesis of what I should be doing. But as a responsible martial artist and a responsible you could argue human. I shoot someone, right? Most people want to say, well, I really didn't want to kill that person, but my life was threatened, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I shot him in the arm or the leg or both or whatever the case is. Let's throw a tourniquet on there, call 911. I did everything I could to defend myself and my family. And I tried to save that person, even though I had to use lethal force, right? Do people know that? People don't talk about it at all. People don't talk about the implications, and I talked about this yesterday a little bit. As a grappler, right? You see lots of videos pop up now. This guy was stealing a purse. He stole whatever, a big gulp. And I tackled him and held him down until the law enforcement came. Okay, great. Okay. Are you law enforcement? If not, you probably shouldn't be doing that, right?
It's a touchy area, man. You get lawsuits and
lawsuits, right? There's people that get sued.
Might have been the best, but
there's tons and tons of case studies you can look at where people get sued for trying to help or trying to even protect themselves, and they get sued, right? So if you're trying to restrain someone and you put their arm behind their back, or you're something that even looks like a choke, or you're just mashing their face into the cement or the tile till law enforcement comes, not even doing anything life-threatening, you have to now prove that that person didn't get injured, right? That person didn't have their shoulder come out of the socket. Well, I didn't do that. Well, prove it, right? Yeah. We have video of you holding someone down with their arm behind the back. Prove to us that you didn't do that. So now you're in thousands of dollars of protecting yourself, right? Those implications are huge.
I know that's a tough area. You want to, I don't know. I don't have the answer, with the lawsuits today. And so we're going to kind of piggyback off Rich, which is another Piper student. So what drew your interest to Piper? Like, what was it? Like, what made you want to seek it out? See what it's about, despite, the bad name, the negative aspect to it. What made you drive from Pennsylvania to New York to come see me?
Yes. So I think, like most things that I pursued, I either saw it in a book, I saw it online, or I saw it on a VHS tape. I remember seeing Piper well over 10 years ago, and some grainy video. I don't even know where I saw it. Some grainy video, people doing these crazy moves. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Why is this knife jingling? This looks not only insane and intriguing, but also looks ridiculous at the same time, right? That's my initial impression, right? And then I look at it, and then I try and find some more videos or articles, and that kind of over years, pursuing different things. And most of my martial arts is out of pure curiosity, right? It's just because I love it all and I want to learn more. So as the years went on, I wanted to try and pursue it. I was having a hard time finding anyone that would teach it, right? And some of as more and more videos and references came out, some of the movements look really similar to what Piper does, right? So for us, it's the major twirl, kind of this movement here, or formerly known as the tumbler, this kind of forward movement. We see it in a lot of martial arts. And I was like, hey, that looks really similar, especially as you're starting to contract and expand. Looks similar to kind of some of the Kung Fu arts I do, or Kung Tao, because we do movements like this, right? That look similar. And I was like, that's really cool. Still couldn't find anyone. And then I remember Libra coming out and seeing some Libra videos. I think it was the early 2000s, and seeing that.
Libra, really? Okay.
Yeah. I think it was maybe between 2000 and 2005.
No, you're probably right. I just didn't realize it. That's all.
Yeah, and seeing that stuff come out, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like looks kind of like a fusion of this and that. Again, it's not. I don't mean to bastardize that, but this looks like, for my mental reference, this looks kind of like this and kind of like that. It looks a little bit like that, and then. I just couldn't find anyone to train with. It was super secretive, similar to Libra. Libra's more accessible now over the past 3 to 5 years, but hard to find anyone doing it. And then I was already familiar for years with yourself, as well as Burton, and following kind of both of your careers and loving what each of you did, and always wanted to train with the both of you. And you were one of the few people that was on my list to train with. And then I saw Piper, and I was like, whoa, this is being publicly taught.
Yeah,
I, can
good
I learn
point.
hand taught?
Publicly
Yeah,
taught. Good
yeah,
point.
yeah. So I was like, this is publicly taught. This is crazy. I've never seen it taught anywhere, right? So I had the stuff. I JKD things. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Why is this here, or why is that there? I wonder why they're doing a shaking motion. Why are they doing this, right? That type of stuff. And I was like, I want to learn what that knife is and why that's there, and where it came from, and why this and why that, and what's the grip. That's what I'm fascinated about, not about rank and not about politics or anything else. I want to learn the why and the how and the culture and intent and the purpose. And I wound up somehow finding a post that you had. Obviously, I've listened to your show for years, but seeing you post that, I was like, I'm there. If I can make it, I'm there. And I wound up meeting you in person and also training at Piper, which was really cool.
Yeah, I was like just so honored that like when you told me you drove up from Pennsylvania, I'm like, holy crap. I was just like, I'm like, wow. Yeah, what's so funny? I don't know if I've seen it 10 years ago, but definitely years ago. And I kind of had the same out like you. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I just never seen movement like this. But at the time I had so many stuff going on. But then I would see more. And then finally Burton, he was 2 weeks before me. And so we're talking, he goes, yeah, I'm like, all right, I gotta check this out. So I, reach out to Lloyd and yeah, but what do you, again, I mean, our sanction, we're trying to really put that positive foot forward. We obviously don't embrace the gang numbers. We can't wear hoodies. We can't do videos with hoodies. None of that nonsense, cultivating that culture. And people I think are starting to see that. I think that's resonating with the community. They're seeing a distinct difference from us and then what some of the others do. I'm sure of it, just by some of the feedback I've been getting. But with that being said, what was it with your initial exposure to from the seminar, like what resonated with you that you wanted to continue? What value did you see in the system, despite the criminal aspect and the ambush?
Yeah, one, the history, right? I'd say first and foremost, and I always say this to everyone. People go, well, why do you do so many things? Why do you do martial arts? I go, because I'm obsessed with the history and the science behind it, right? The cultural aspects, the religious aspects, the food, right? Those are all things in martial arts people don't talk about for some reason, and they're in every art. So I was fascinated by that. Number one. Number two, I was really fascinated with it because it fit a lot of the movements I was already doing, or at least I felt I was doing, particularly from the Kung Tao lineages and the Kung Fu lineages, and even some FCS as well. I felt it was very similar. It fit my body type. Let's say that, right? It fit my body type really well. And I felt it's something that I maybe could or should pursue to some degree and just absorb, right? It could only make, I look at it in a way, this could only make my Kung Tao better and my FCS better and my this better and my knowledge better, and understanding the criminal elements from a different country and all of these other things, right? The history and the origin of these things. That's why I wanted to pursue it. And it had nothing to do with factions or rank or this or that or anything else, just out of pure curiosity and hunger for knowledge.
Yeah. You know what my reason was?
Tell me.
I'm fascinated at being against knife. I mean, you got to know that right now. How the hell would I defend against this?
Yeah. Run.
Yeah. Hold on. But I was just like, how would I defend against this? And I'm like, oh, well, before I can figure out how to, I got to know the offense. So therefore, that's when I jumped in, both legs. But, and then I found out it's really hard to defend against. Think about sewing machine. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I grab you, I'm doing sewing machine, but it's the same attack coming. And I don't want the audience to misconstrue this. I'm not saying that's easy. Sure. However, though, it's a same linear line. Psycho, same linear line. Slashes, same linear line. I mean, how do you defend against that? Like, you don't know.
You can't. Punches are coming from everywhere.
Which hand's coming? You know what I mean? So when I saw that, I'm like, good heavens, man, how would I do, you know?
The best description I could give, and for those of you who are again martial arts nerds, it's like trying to box Lomachenko, right? You're here, you're in front of him, you're trying to box him, and then you go like this, and he's over here, and he's cracking you in the head, and then you go, you're ready, you go throw uppercut, and he's over here, right? You have no idea, like your techniques don't work anymore; they're just garbage, right?
Crazy.
It's literally that, because you're like, oh, there's oh no, it's not there anymore, and you have no idea what's happening, and that's really any. And again, generally speaking, that's any really high level knife system. It's nearly impossible to defend. If someone knows the three basic angles or tres puntos or whatever you want to call it, three main angles, right? 1, 2, 3, whether it's slash thrust, to simplify things. If someone's really good with that, you can't stop that, right? Even if you were just to go here and drop it into the other hand and slash, right? Or you went from sock and switched to pakal, right?
That's not enough right there.
Just with 3 angles, even 2 angles. And I do that sometimes. I go, does X work? We're just going to do 2 angles. You know what those angles are, right? You can go this way, or you can go this way. You know what the angles are. Find a defense for it, right? I'll do that. I'll go, today we're not doing a single technique. You find what works. You can grab, you can run, you can throw, you can tackle, you can do whatever the hell you want. Angle 1 and angle 2, right? Go, right? So if someone's skilled, you're not getting that. They'll go here, you don't see it, and they'll come back on the other side.
Oh, it's
right?
freaking
right? Then you start introducing grappling. You start introducing someone, slaps you in and stabs you, right? Well, like, am I allowed to do that? Well, I didn't say you couldn't, right?
Yeah, it's the thing too is, though people have said, and yes, obviously, yeah, you run or whatever, or attempt to, but the whole thing with the aspect of the ambush is that the sensory overload is just so overwhelming. Yep. And you're that aspect of being like frozen, so to speak,
Yeah.
So talking about being behind the OODA loop, you're really behind.
Yeah. And that's actually something I define, and others might define it this way, but I've always been a big fan of defining for trapping, right? People go, oh, trapping is this, or trapping is this, or whatever their definition of trapping is. But for me, I define it, and I know others have too as well. It's an intermittent immobilization, right? Mm-hmm. So if trapping is an intermittent immobilization, that means an immobilization is essentially a disarm, right? Because if I'm coming in like this and you throw change in my face, right, that's going to disrupt my angle of attack or maybe even stop me, right? That's an intermittent immobilization, even for a fraction of a second, right? So it's a trap, right, in quotes, loosely said, right? It could be a G-Tech, it could be change thrown, it could be me running, it could be anything possible. It could be a flashlight and me doing this, so I don't slash. Don't slash out here. I slash like this, right? Those are intermittent immobilizations. That's a trap, right? And in some ways, you could consider it a disarm, right? Because that allows me to hit, that allows me to cut, that allows me to shoot or whatever.
Or
and
draw.
We don't think of it that way, right?
No, it's true. No, valid points. So we got a few more. Hopefully that answered. I just want to see Rich's question again, but I think it got answered.
I think it was Rich, and Rich was asking how Piper could fit in with what I teach.
Your existing training. Yeah.
So I think it enhances what I already do, and it fits me really well. I think it's also, there are some aspects of it, again, because probably it fits my body type. And obviously I think the more things you try, the more things that you do, the more similarities and more connections, there's more neural pathways you can create. But as far as teaching, I think it's a great reference point for history, for science, for the criminal element of understanding what that is and what that was in different cultures, right? And physically, I think it's also how simple the moves are. Fairly simple. Again, it's not easy. I'm not saying that at all.
Based.
Right?
So based.
Yeah. And it's how can you apply these things? It's like a jab, cross, hook, right? Boxing for the most part is based on jab, cross, hook, uppercut, overhand. But really, it's jab, cross, hook, right? Look at all the different styles and ways you can combine jab, cross, hook to create things that don't even look the same, right? Yeah. And for me, this Piper is that. It's a way of combining jab, cross, hook in a manner that's completely overwhelming. and you don't understand it. So, if it's not Piper, it's something else that you're like, wow, what is happening? That's crazy. And you actually see this in some C-lot styles. You'll see the slapping of the hitting, like when Seafood Chris does his hits. All these represent something, like this is me smashing your head, but it's also part of conditioning. So you hear, and you're like, what is happening? That was and the reverberation and everything. Those are things that are in Piper, right?
Oh, I know.
When I see other arts that have that, you're like, whoa, this is crazy. I need to learn this. So that was part of it. I think that's how it fits in to the greater whole of who I am and what I teach and what I train in.
We talked, I think we talked this on the side about this, and it's not like I have a strong opinion in this. I look at stuff that you brought up, weight, strength, and all that, and just to get your opinion or folks to hear it. Like, I want to make really specific context here. Women who don't get to train 4 days a week, don't do all the ranges. Your average lay person who just does not have the time for 1,000 reasons. I believe that it's going to be weaponized, women's self-defense, or the option there of pretending their comfort level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What is your comfort level? And then based on that, what would they hold? What would they have? What would they be willing to deploy? God forbid. I mean, and again, with specific context to women that can't allocate a lot of time towards that. I mean, again, the whole pre-violence stuff, self-awareness, all that being, inclusive. But when push comes to shove, just the ability for them to pull it out and showcase it, even if they don't have to use it, hopefully, thank God. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that an edge weapon is a great equalizer, particularly for someone who's smaller or, used to be called weaker, but may not have the necessary strength of, an athletic male, right? Or a combat athlete. I think the knife is a great equalizer, particularly. But then I go back to, well, if you don't have time, what else could you be doing, right? What are in reality, and this is dependent on demographics and geolocation and so many other things. But in reality, you have way more of a chance of getting into a car accident and you severely injured or a family member severely injured or something happening day to day, right? How many people break a limb or arm or leg or something, right? Mm-hmm. My good friend Joe fell off a ladder 2 months ago, right? Busted his arm, he had to get surgery, right? That's way more likely to happen, right? You need to know what to do. So for me, that's part of self-preservation. You need to understand what to do to happen to you or someone else that you're close to, rather than learning, gun disarm number 15, right? Yeah. So do you know first aid, right? You don't need to be certified in it, but do you know basic first aid, right? Do you know, and I mentioned this yesterday, do you know some type of blood trauma, right? Do you know how to pack? Do you know how to seal? Do you know how to apply a tourniquet? Do you even have a tourniquet, right? Do you know how to swim? People go, why the hell do I need to know how to swim for?
Because your car goes in the river.
Car goes in the water. Your kid jumps in the pool, right? Yeah. You turn around 1 second, your kid jumps in the pool and they're drowning, right? Which happened to a good friend of mine. He had to jump in the pool. If he didn't know how to swim, right? Which I've seen people go, well, why do I have a pool and don't know how to swim? I know people that have a pool and don't know how to swim, right? So those are all things that are way more likely to happen than you encounter someone with a knife duel where I bump into you in 7-Eleven and we both pull out our knives.
Yeah, we're ready to score.
Way more likely.
Yeah.
Can you run, right? Can you swim? Do you know first aid?
Yeah.
That'll save your life. So when people ask me, hey, Alan, what's the best martial art? Besides saying, hey, I think I'd like to say here, right? But then I go, well, can you run 100 yards nonstop without taking a break? Can you run 100 yards as fast as you can? Can you do that? I don't know. Maybe in high school. Do you know first aid? Kind of. I have Band-Aids in my car. Can you swim? Yeah, I go to the shore and I jump in the pool. Are those sufficient answers, right? If your life depends on it, are they sufficient answers? Those don't cost money. You can do all those for free.
Yeah.
I don't need to teach them to you. Those are completely free. No dojo, no sign-up fees, no monthly cost, no kimonos, no belts. Go learn it. Go on YouTube, learn from a friend.
Oh my God,
Here's a
YouTube
complete
has
truth.
everything. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, you know.
Go learn it, right? Go
Yeah.
learn it. And people don't. That's your self-defense. The hell with everything else. Forget the flying triangles. Forget the,
Flying triangle.
grenade disarm. It's, should you learn all that other stuff? Sure, right? But let's start with a baseline. What's your intent? Self-defense. Then go learn that other stuff. What are you doing?
Yeah. No, fair enough. Love it. What is for you, your system, everything? I mean, what's your future goals for you and your system? First question. Second question: if you had the time, and we'll keep it FMA specific, if you could do another FMA system, if you had the time, what would that system be?
Those are good ones. So my system, it's evolved in its name over the years, but for the most part, it was always that anything goes system, right? That was my focus. So for me, over time, as I evolved it and it became, again, I started to look at, is this for me? Is it for martial artists? Who's this for? I after watching so many other instructors teach, and for me, taking classes and watching other instructors, how they translate information, I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't happy with the way people transmit information or carry on information. And again, that doesn't mean I'm better or I'm the best at all. I'm not saying that. I have tons to learn, and I learn every day from anyone, whether you're a white belt first day or you've been doing it 50 years. I learn little things every day. But for me, that's why I evolved it to the martial intelligence method, right? And it's focused on preservation and perfection, right? Those are not things unique that we haven't heard before, but it's what can I do? It's part health, it's part mental, it's part physical, it's part self-defense, right? It's all of those things combined. And the core pillars of it is striking, weapons, grappling, and fitness. Those are the four pillars, the three main ones: striking, weapons, and grappling. And I teach it in a manner that's, again, my criteria is scalable, sustainable, efficient. So whether you're 15 or you're 70, and I have a student who's 72 who's trained with me for years, can you do it from 15 to 72, right? In realistic senses, right? You're not going to do spinning high kicks at 72, right? Unlikely. So again, it has to be efficient, has to be scalable and sustainable. Can you learn self-defense grappling and I go, hey, Alan, this guy's in town. I think his last name's Gracie, and I want to go do the seminar because my friend invited me to it. Cool, go. And if you learn in a correct manner, you're not going to know all the techniques, but you should have at least some semblance of an idea of how and what's happening, right? Yeah. And this is an analogy I use all the time. Like if you learn how to drive a tractor, a lawnmower, right? You learn the mechanics of it. You learn the wheel, the brake, how to start it, how to stop it. You learn a little bit about the gears. That gives you a general sense of how most automobiles work. Not all of them, but it's like a baseline, right? So it's understanding that. So my point being is I wanted to be able to transmit information intelligently to both martial artists and civilians, those who don't train martial arts. So that's the martial intelligence method. And over the years, I've refined it and refined it and refined it. And most recently, I've come up with three core programs of those that are easily transmittable or can easily plug into if you're currently training. So you don't have to train any martial arts to learn it, but they're easily plug and play modular. So if you're doing Taekwondo and you want to do the striking system, you can plug it in. Or if you're already doing sport BJJ and you want to learn the self-defense portions of that, or what to account for self-defense wise, you can plug in the combat jits. So my three programs are hybrid striking, combat jits, and then vector weaponology. They all have striking, they all have weapons, they all have grappling, but 90% is going to be one of those, right? In the striking, is there a clinch? Sure, but it's going to be 90% striking, all different types of striking, from all different ranges. Is it going to have weapons? Sure, I need to know that. And those in-betweens is kind of a vector diagram where they all fit in. All three fit in because grappling is in striking, right? Striking is in grappling. Weapons are in both. You need to know all three of those. So as I've evolved it, the future of that is I have a ton of stuff filmed. And Sifu Gary Powell, he's on here. asking some questions. So shout out to him. He's a longtime training partner and friend. He helped me film some of the stuff, and I just have to finish editing it. And I'll have an online training program for my level 1 and 2 for Vector, and then soon to come my combat jits self-defense stuff too as well. So that's hopefully the future of that. I want to continue to expand that and be able to share that. I've shared it and refined it over many years, but the last 2 years I've been able to really publicly start to share it slowly over COVID. And I've shared that in some areas here in Pennsylvania. I had the awesome opportunity to go down to see Sifu Danny and share some of this knowledge with him, and to get feedback from him was not only an honor, but he shared some great feedback with me. I got to test some of it on him.
Fantastic.
So that was really exciting to be able to play with, and I continue to do that. I showed it at the Croft camp. So I'm always coming back and getting more feedback, but again, it's your intent. It's self-defense based. We're not talking about points. We're not talking about any of that. Can you learn in a progressive manner? Yeah, that's the idea. You don't need to be an all-star athlete. I'm not, and you can learn from the ground up if you want to. And if you already have some skills, great. It'll plug right into what you have.
That's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to seeing this. It sounds like man, I didn't know you had this going on. I mean, this is why it's so fun to do these interviews, because you kind of, you learn stuff, and like I can't wait for you to get this stuff out. I mean, wow, I'm looking forward to it. It sounds like it's really well structured, organized. Obviously, put some time and thought into it.
It's many years of testing and failing, as I said. So
failing.
I really started formulating the curriculum in like 2013, 2014, with the help of my friend who I mentioned earlier, Angel. And I asked him, I said, can you break this? It started off as a knife template. And the idea was, can I create a knife template for non-martial artists to learn in a very short period of time, particularly females, but anyone. It doesn't matter what grip. That's how it all started. So I took all my knowledge, said, hey, I want to build a curriculum just on the knife. What can we do? How can we apply this? Can we make this really, really solid? And I tested with as many people as I could. And I got to a place where it was like trying to polish the diamond. And again, I'm not calling my stuff a diamond, but it's that constant progression of refining and honing. And I got to a place that I really, really liked. It's very hard to defend the knife application that I've put together. And I said, well, when I looked at it, and again, it was around maybe 2014, and I said, well, this is great, but not everyone's going to have an edge weapon. What if I don't have access to that, right? Male, female, it doesn't matter. We need to have an empty hand version of this. So I said, okay, what does this look like empty-handed? It should have the same. I've built a knife system on gross motor skills and instinctual movements. Well, the empty hand should apply that as well. And that's when it started to grow and grow and grow. And it took me years to try and finally put that together and come out with a full curriculum, and also include the knife system into that. Right. Yeah. So as you progress through the levels, you get to level 3, 4, 5 is when the knife starts actually coming out. Not that you don't use it previous to that, but you actually learn a knife template later on, because you're learning how the knife works, how the weapon works, not the template. You're not learning how to kill, right? You're learning common attacks. And then later on, you're learning, well, if I need to apply this defensively, what are some things I can apply and how do I apply it? So that's how I structured the curriculum. So you're learning, by the time you get to there, it's really just doing a lot of the movements with an edge weapon or impact.
Now
weapon.
You're putting the knife and gotcha. Yeah. Wow. I can't wait to, please let me know when this comes out. I mean, I want to try to push it to FMA discussion for you and everything. I'm truly looking forward to this. Been holding back on me, Alan.
So I've been fortunate enough, as I mentioned, a lot of the people on here have seen it. Robert Robinson has seen it. He's level 1 in my system. He's a good guy. Sifu Danny got to see it a few months ago, and it's a good chunk of it, not all of it. Gary Powell, who's on here, have seen it. So a lot of people here have seen it, gave me great feedback, got to test it, got to feel it. Right. It's one of the things that I like to say. My instructor, James Hunden, likes to say, make them a believer, make them feel it. Right. That's how you make people a believer. Make them feel it. Right. So make them feel it. Right. Yeah. And you have to. You got to do it intelligently, but you got to make them feel it.
Yeah. If you want it right. Otherwise, you're not going to have anybody to show and have them feel it.
Yep.
You know? So the FMA system, if you had the time and nothing wouldn't interfere with anything, you could just mold it right in there and without anything getting left out or taking a back seat. What would it be?
A style that I don't currently do, correct?
Yes, but one that you would want to go kind of like A through Z, like you would want to pursue it. You know what I mean? Not just play around it. Like, I mean, you would actively pursue it.
That's a tough one. I'd probably have to say I would definitely love to do this. This is like my number two. This is consolation prize. I'd say more Tapato, because Tapato goes really deep and it doesn't get enough credit for what it does and what it has.
I've been, like, as you know, I want to cover it, you know?
Yeah, so that would make my consolation number two. First place, I'd probably have to say KI, because I've always been fascinated with KI, and
everybody says it.
Yeah, and number two is and right behind it, and I'll put maybe now Tapato's third place. But I was always fascinated with PTK, especially the older style, the Sifu Danny style from McGrath. The really I'll say older style. Obviously, there's many factions.
Well, pre-Tri-V.
Pre-Tri-V, whatever North is a Mason Dixon or whatever you want to call it. Prior to whatever. It's. I don't think I've ever seen a system laid out the way PTK has been. It's not only it's overwhelming, but it's also laid out
so
unbelievable.
Thorough.
Like I'm shocked at how thorough it is, and that makes me
laid out like his though.
I don't know, but it's unbelievable.
I think is by far the most. And the reason why I say this because I've interviewed quite a few PTK people on here. Yeah. I think by far he has the most elaborate library, so to speak. Yeah,
I agree. It fascinates me how someone could put together literally every conceivable move from every position. I nerd out about it. It's unbelievable.
Set, spotty dagger.
Yeah, I absolutely love. I nerd out about it. I was like, this is crazy. Like, what happened here? And they're like, oh, this is this module, blah blah blah. And they're like, this is insane. How this is like centuries of stuff laid out of every possibility. Right, so crazy. I would say that's tied for second place along with Tapato, but I'd probably say KI just because of the fluency and there's a little bit of deception in there and having a lot of the origins in a longer edge weapon. That fascinates me, and I just haven't had the time or energy to really pursue it and give it the credit it needs. If I do that, I'm going to have to dedicate myself to that and not do it kind of slowly and kind of piecemeal. I have to pursue it and dedicate myself to it.
Yeah, it's sword based. I mean, 100%. Do they do stick? Yeah, not really a stick system. It's I mean, they could play the long middle game, close range. They're not going to do well in it. You know what I mean? It's a sword based system. I mean, and Agan and the tactics heavily tactic based, or should be presented that way. Let's put it that way.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, so I'd say that's probably my number one, right? With a close number two of probably Tapato and old school PTK, or probably close second. And there's some other obscure things that I'd love to do, but those probably are the most common ones. There's other arts that I'd like to train a section of, right? Like a subsystem. Just like a little. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with Doce Pares and Corto Curbata, right? So I spent probably 2 years just downloading as much as I could into my head and I'm nuts. So in my free time, I'll record a clip or film a clip, and I was like, oh, show that to me again, and then I'll watch it literally hundreds of times to figure out what the hell is going on. Because I'm crazy, but it's stuff like that I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing. How do I use that in my stuff, right? And then tracing back to lineage, and you go, oh, well, Doce Pares influence on modern Arnis, influence on FCS, and this person was here and that person was there. Oh, I see now, right? That's the stuff I love.
Yeah, for FMA. Maybe I would probably the combo. I would like to fit because it was the main system of LeMayco. Probably that. Non-FMA, which I want to do, is Eskrima Criolla, the Argentine art there.
Yes,
I
yes,
am so freaking fascinated with that man with the poncho, that
yep,
whole
yep,
man. I freaking love that system from afar. Oh,
yep. But what's fascinating, like, and again, for those nerds that are on there, if people look up, Argentinian or South America, there's Colombian, like machete fighting.
yeah.
There's a
Heavy
documentary called Papa
machete down there.
Machete, yeah, in Dominican Republic. But again, looking at and nerding out about this stuff, what runs through all of those, right?
Spanish. Spanish influence.
Spanish,
Yeah.
European fencing, right? And then again, this might be a hot topic. You look at FMA styles and systems. What runs through those? Again, people get pissed when I
Definitely
say this stuff,
Spanish.
but
KI. Look at KI. Heavily Spanish influenced.
it's fencing, right? So the core of it, right? You look at, okay, well, this is fencing. These are people with more money have better weapons generally, right? And poor people have crappier weapons, right? So the weapon sometimes, the machete and palo. The palo is the stick, right? So it's essentially the baston and daga, or baston and whatever blade you want to call it. So those things are the same, and you see how they parry, and you can move them. All the same movements, right? These same movements here. You're using the parry, you're using the trap, right? The same things happen. You're using this, but this is a trap and this is a cut. But you're doing it from long range. You're using those classical angles, which again typically have religious implications or mathematical or scientific implications behind them. Again, something someone doesn't talk about. I don't know why people don't talk about it, but you start to look at the European influence in there. They're almost all scientific or religious.
No, definitely
based.
European. I mean,
right?
The whole thing with the cloak. I mean, but they put it on their arms. I mean, there's evidence the Europeans did that. There's definitely, they say Creole, this Eskrima Creole is a fusion of the natives and the Spanish. Then the gauchos, the cowboys had a play in it, but it's so freaking fascinating. You know what's so great about too? These small systems, like that's kind of why I joined Piper too, but until I find out there was politics here. But I'm pretty confident, Eskrima Creole, no politics.
So. Yep. Yeah, and what's actually cool, right? We'll pair this back to Piper. This okapi or the kudu that has a similar. This is a European shape. If you look at the Spanish navaja, right? The cuchillo, or in Argentina it's called the faca. This shape is very, very similar to navaja. Very similar. It would be bigger, and they were used by the cowboys in South America. So and in Spain and in Europe, right? Oftentimes, again, not defend anyone, but the gypsies, right, in Europe, right, from the Romanis, right, from all over Central Europe, right, all over the place, Spain, Portugal, France, they all had the same thing. If you look up even the Apaches, the Apache fighters in France use similar knives with this little ring.
No, definitely, 100%. And then supposedly the Germans brought it to not even Cape Town initially, Africa, and then somehow it made its way down to Cape Town. But Rich is killing me.
I know. This is our usual conversation. Like we bust on each other like this.
It's all everything is generally Filipino. Yeah. That guy is funny, man. We cracking me up out in California. That guy was cracking me up.
Yeah, Rich and I go way back, and that's our usual conversation.
He's funny, man. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But man, but this has been great. Oh, believe it or not, we are almost at 2 hours.
It flew by. I warned you. I could go for another 8 hours.
It was great.
Stop. Yeah.
I knew it was gonna be fun. Like I tell you, man. Like I told you, like this is the stuff I like the best. You know what I mean? Like where you have questions, but then then it kind of just goes on its own flow, and so those are the ones that are most enjoyable for me, to be honest. So
yes, again, it was a ton of fun. Super honored to be on here.
Oh my gosh, happy it happened. Yeah,
great questions from you. Great questions in the chat, and always happy to share. So
yeah. So we'll be so we gotta get on. We have to get on. Mr. Famous Boy there, Nick Merchant. Now that he's back in New York, and the glow is off him now, and he's like down to reality. We can. So So we're talking. He says he's gonna look at the schedule, what place, and but he's pretty confident it's gonna happen. Pretty soon. So
Good,
Yeah.
good.
And then
That'll be fun.
that'll be great 'cause then we can get back together.
Yeah, excited to collaborate and share and again learn, test things, break things,
Yeah.
and have fun with it.
No, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. We on the ground wrapped up.
Yeah, it's and you actually commented on some of these videos last year when I was posting them. I limit how much I post just because it as you know, it gets wacky sometimes. But one of the main positions I talk about a lot is that mid area when someone's trying to stand up or they're falling down. Right? It's not completely grounded. It's not standing up. It's that mid area where you're most vulnerable. It's brutal. And if you think stuff will work, whatever you thought would work, and you're in a lunge position or on both knees.
So from the perspective of trying to get up against an attacker or vice versa.
Yeah. So from the bottom, it's easy. I mean, you got perineum, you got femoral, you got all the fun stuff going on down there. Even empty hand, you're pretty good. Someone coming in either, it depends on the scenario. Most of the time, as we know, science tells us the thrust to the center line is most common, right? Just the sewing machine. But oftentimes when people fall down, you'll see people switch to your ice pick grip.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like that minimalistic, just natural, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. It's super, super fascinating. And you'll see people struggle. There's lots of videos out there. There's one that sticks in my mind. I always show it. I think they're in the back of a convenience store. It might even be Europe. And they're struggling. And the guy keeps getting stabbed overhand. He kind of falls and slips on one leg. He gets back up. You see blood shooting everywhere.
I know exactly.
And he keeps going, and he's like hands up here, and the guy just keeps pummeling, and they both fall down. He gets up again. It's brutal. But that position, he spent a majority of the time trying to get up and doing one of these, and just eating it over and over again.
Oh my God!
And for me, and this is again from a grappler perspective, so it's probably even worse for a non-grappler. Forget mount, forget side control, forget standing, forget all the positions that you can think of. I think halfway up or halfway down is the worst position you could ever be in with an edge weapon. You're so vulnerable.
Man, I'm looking forward to that. I got to,
It's horrible.
So I do know having the weapon, trying to stand up there I play with that. And it's pretty good. Matter of fact, I do a BJJ to a C-lot here. I'll have to show it to you. You'll recognize it. So I use a hybrid BJJ to a C-lot get up, but it's pretty good with the knife getting up.
Yeah.
The other way around, that I'm not sure if I played
horrible. Yeah. Especially if there's a clinch involved, because you can still on one knee or on both knees or whatever orientation on your knees, even on your butt, right? Trying to get back up. That person can still clinch, and all that force is either going directly into you or down.
They can just wrap around your leg, man. Okay. They weren't the play with that.
Yeah, and hence the name of my system, Vector, because it's focused on angles, force vectors. The vector also has a throwback to kind of a virus as a viral vector of how it gets into a cell. Anyway, that's me nerding out again. Those angles of me having to try and get up while the knife is coming down or coming in. Horrible.
No, I see what you mean. Like you're trying to get up from there. Like
so
getting up is not bad. Getting up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, man.
So getting up, and that's why I emphasize this, and that's why there's crossover in my system. And I taught this at the Krav camp. Getting up properly, right? So if you think you get up, good, right? Let's test it out. Do you get kicked in the face while you're getting up? Right? Is that something you've accounted for? Now try and do it with a weapon. Get up with a weapon, right? Are you a black belt and standing up? If yes, great. Let's throw a weapon in there. Are you just as good? Right? So those are questions I ask myself. So if you're crappy at getting up, which if you type in technical stand-up or BJJ stand-up, and I encourage everyone to do this when they go home, or if you're already home and watching it, type in technical stand-up, watch how many people stand up and their head is over their knees and they're looking down at the mat.
They're just looking down because in tournament, they're not worried about getting kicked.
Yeah. Nor are you probably standing up, right?
Or even better yet, you're not even standing up, right?
Yeah. So bad training scars, right? Bad habits. Those are things that you need to look at.
Interesting.
And is standing up an important part of self-defense? Yeah. But if you're looking down, you can't see what's going on, right? You should be more of a sumo, right? Straight down, back straight,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Rather than looking down on all fours, looking straight down where weapons coming in, someone's coming in to boot you in the face. Yeah, there's, and
But I can
people,
definitely
this doesn't happen.
see why that wouldn't be a priority for them. I could definitely see that. Like, yeah, like, um, wow, interesting, interesting. Let me see.
Yeah, actually, Sifu Rich just posted that. If
Oh,
people are
okay.
interested, I did a whole video on standing up, which
No, he said
I
he said your grappling was on point. I mean, Rich
well,
said down in
thank you. I
California,
appreciate that.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah, I've done some videos of how to stand up and why. I show some reference points
yeah,
about that. I've talked quite a bit about that, and it's simple, and it's part of the combat jits program that I have. It's I call them foundational elements of can you stand? Show me your stand up, right? Show me you
mm,
standing up. Like, okay, what's your intent behind that? Is it to
yeah,
stand up to go to the store? Is it stand up to go grab a beer from the fridge, or you're trying to use that in self defense? Have you
yeah,
done it out in the pavement? Right. So it's that type of progression that I talk about. And now you throw weapons in there, it's a whole different world.
yeah. Oh man, I'm looking forward to us getting together on that, especially the one you're trying to get up. You don't have the weapon, and
Yep. It's brutal.
yeah, I could see that. I'm just thinking right now. I could, yeah, like,
But that's where your clinch, your grip strength, your two on
yeah, your
ones,
freaking grip strength
um,
on the 2-on-1, man.
you shedding, right? And again, shouting out to Sifu Danny here, your clinch, right? He's a high level Thai boxer. Your
Yeah,
clinch, you need to know how to shed that while you're defending at the same time, right?
yeah.
And understand the clinch, right? So how do you understand the clinch? You got to be in it, right?
No,
You have to be in it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. To understand the offense is something, man, or the defense, you got to do the offense. You know, it's like saying, how do you go defend against a tie kick if you don't even understand how to throw it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, right on about that. Yeah. Wow, this is gonna be great. So we gotta get on Nick. Nick, man, get this thing
Yeah,
going.
he's busy. He's famous. He's Hollywood.
No, he's gonna. We met last week. He did a lesson, so he's right now. He's supposed to be this weekend. Actually, he's supposed to be working on it. So
Cool.
Monday, I'm supposed to touch base with him. So yeah, I'll be on. Don't worry.
Awesome. Awesome.
But hey, this is fun, man. I appreciate
Yes.
it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for coming on.
Thank you, sir. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you have any
Yeah,
questions, feel free to reach out. I'm all over the place. You can reach out through Dean, myself, Martial
yeah.
Intelligence Method. I'm Instagram, Facebook, all that. Philly Collie. You feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat and nerd out for forever. So
Yeah,
thank you,
plus
everyone.
you got those great programs coming out. So again, when those come out, please let me know. I'm gonna push it on FMA discussion for you. You know.
It'll push me to finally finish them. So they're years in the making, and I have to edit and get the Weaponology one out. And then in the meantime, I've been doing some private training
Oh
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
it out a little bit.
No, definitely do it. We'll push it. We'll push it for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yuri.
All right, man. You take care.
Yes.
We'll be in touch. So
Yes, we'll be in touch. Thank you again. Honored to be on here. Everyone have a great long weekend and holiday, and very honored to be here. Safe travels if anyone's going anywhere, and keep training. Be smart, train hard, and give hugs.
all right.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Salute you, sir. Good
Have a good one.
show. You did a
Bye.
great job. Be in touch.
I will. Thanks.
All right. And that wraps up 235. Who is next? Who is next? This kicks off the new month, so there's plenty coming down. I'm just looking at it right now. I think we got a Kabbalah guy coming on. A few others. I think Tom's doing some folks. Also, watch out for the joint seminars coming up. Got one coming up with Tim Hartman next week, and then Guru Brandon, Coach Danny, and then hopefully these guys are going to start getting together and doing them on their own. I just wanted to get the wheels going on that. So look out for those. I mean, they're reasonably priced, and you're going to get 2 instructors and showing you whatever. So if you ever had interest in a system that maybe you weren't fully aware of or you wanted to check it out, great opportunity for not a lot of money. And guess what? If you're an instructor, you want to jump on these wine, you might get students out of it. Imagine that. All right, all. Thanks. And I will see you next time.